On June 21st, 2025, at Mount Zion Baptist Church on Martin Luther King Boulevard in South Dallas, a man splashed sulfuric acid in the bride's face right in the middle of the wedding vows. Jasmine Reed, 30, died at Parkland Memorial Hospital's burn center 6 hours after the attack. Her fiancé, Trevon Barnes, suffered chemical burns to both hands and was hospitalized in serious condition. The attacker fled the scene through a side exit of the church and disappeared into the streets of South Dallas. Streets of South Dallas. But to understand how the wedding ceremony turned into a nightmare, we need to go back 4 years to August 2021, when Dwayne Cross first saw Jasmine Reed in the backyard of someone else's house. The barbecue was hosted by Malik Sutton, Dwayne's colleague at Lone Star Electric, a construction company where they both worked as electricians on commercial projects. Malik was celebrating the purchase of his first home, a small bungalow on Lancaster Avenue with a crooked porch and a leaky roof, which the two of them were planning to repair over the coming weekend. About 20 people showed up, colleagues, neighbors, and acquaintances from church. Dwayne stood at the grill, turning ribs and talking to Malik about the wiring in the new shopping center on Stemmons Freeway, when a girl in a yellow sundress with a paper plate in her hands approached them. "Malik, introduce me to the man who cooks so well," she said, and Dwayne looked up from the grill. She was 26, short, with smooth dark skin, high cheekbones, and large brown eyes that danced with the glints of the coals. Her short hair was styled in waves. She wore a thin gold chain around her neck, and bright lipstick made her smile even more noticeable. She moved as if she knew she was being watched, and she liked it. "Jasmine, this is Dwayne," Malik said. "The best electrician in Dallas and the only person who can make ribs as good as my mom. Dwayne, this is Jasmine, Chantel's friend from the salon." Dwayne was 31 at the time. He never knew how to talk to beautiful women. He would get lost, fall silent, and squint as if the sun was shining directly in his eyes. He had only had one serious relationship, with Nicole Grant, an accountant from his church community, who left him after 2 years, saying she was tired of talking to herself. Dwayne grew up on the south side of Dallas, in a neighborhood where half the houses had boarded up windows, and in the evenings, people sold all kinds of illicit goods at the intersections. His mother, Sharon, raised him alone from the age of 12. Dwayne's father worked as an electrician at a power plant in Irving and died when he was electrocuted while replacing a transformer. The insurance company paid the family $40,000, which was enough for the funeral, to pay off the car loan, and 3 years of relatively comfortable living. Then the money ran out, and Sharon went to work as a nurse in a nursing home on Lancaster Road. Dwayne had been working part-time since he was 16, delivering pizza, washing cars, unloading trucks at a warehouse. After school, he trained as an electrician at a vocational college, got his license, and got a job at Lone Star Electric. The salary was $3,200 a month. The work was hard and dangerous, but Dwayne treated it with respect. He remembered how his father had died and never neglected safety precautions. He wore a helmet, checked the voltage twice, and never worked at heights without safety equipment. Large, broad-shouldered, with heavy hands and slow movements, he gave the impression of a man who was difficult to upset. He spoke little, listened attentively, and answered questions after a pause, as if he were testing each word for strength before letting it out. His colleagues respected him for his reliability and professionalism, but he had no close friends except Malik. Dwayne didn't drink or smoke, and on Sundays he went to church with his mother, where he sat in the back pew and listened to the sermon with the expression of someone who wants to believe but can't quite manage it. Jasmine Reed was his complete opposite. She grew up in a family that was always noisy, fun, and crowded. Her mother Loretta, father Wade, older brother Derek, and younger sister Carla. The Reeds lived in a small house on Bonnie View Road, where relatives from all over Dallas gathered on Sundays, and on Christmas, there were about 30 people at the table. Loretta worked as a seamstress in a textile factory. Wade was a school bus driver. Money was tight, but the house never felt poor. Loretta knew how to make a home out of nothing, sewing curtains and bedspreads from scraps of fabric she brought home from the factory. After school, Jasmine completed a cosmetology course and got a job at the Glow Beauty Salon on Redbird Lane. She enjoyed her work. She loved making people more beautiful. Her clients adored her for her easygoing personality, her ability to chat about anything and everything, and her knack for turning a routine visit to the beautician into a little celebration. Her salary was $1,800, but tips sometimes amounted to half her base salary. She dreamed of opening her own salon, not a small room with a single chair, but a real establishment with a storefront, a reception desk, and 3 stylists. After the barbecue, Dwayne spent 3 days working up the courage to call. Jasmine answered right away, as if she had been expecting the call, and suggested they meet at a Mexican restaurant on Jefferson Boulevard. On their first date, Dwayne was mostly quiet, while Jasmine talked more about work, clients, and funny incidents at the salon. She told him how an elderly lady comes in every Friday for a haircut and always brings homemade cookies in a tin can, how teenagers ask for like Beyoncé and get upset when the result doesn't match the picture. "Are you always this quiet?" Jasmine asked as they walked to his pickup truck after dinner. Dwayne replied. "I like that. All the men around here do is talk about themselves. But you listen, that's rare." The courtship lasted 3 months. Dwayne did what he knew how to do. He took care of her. He fixed the sink in her rented apartment, replaced the old outlet that was sparking, and installed a new lock on the front door. He brought her groceries when she had the flu and picked her up from the salon in the evening so she wouldn't have to ride the bus in the dark. Once, when Jasmine's air conditioner broke down in the middle of the August heat, he arrived at 11 p.m. after a 12-hour shift, took the unit apart, found the problem, and fixed it in an hour and a half. "Who fixes air conditioners at midnight?" Jasmine asked, standing in the doorway in a short robe. "It's hot," Dwayne replied, and that was the longest confession of love he was capable of. 4 months later, Jasmine moved in with him. The apartment on Cornet Street was small. 1 bedroom, a combined kitchen and living room, and a tiny bathroom. Dwayne lived like a soldier, minimal possessions, everything in its place, the bed made, the dishes washed. Jasmine brought chaos to this space, cosmetics on every horizontal surface, clothes on the backs of chairs, shoes in the hallway, the smell of perfume that made Dwayne sneeze for the first week. Dwayne's mother, Sharon, was wary of Jasmine. The 60-year-old woman with grey hair and calloused hands, who had worked as a nurse for 20 years and knew people better than she would have liked, saw something in her future daughter-in-law that she couldn't quite put into words. "She's a beautiful girl," she said to her son after their first meeting. "Very beautiful. But be careful, baby. Beautiful people are used to getting everything they want for free." "Mom, she's not like that," Dwayne replied. "Maybe she's not. Just keep an eye on her." Dwayne didn't listen. He was in love for the first time in his life. Not like with Nicole, calmly and habitually, but in a way that took his breath away when Jasmine entered the room. He worked, brought home a paycheck, paid for the apartment, bought groceries, fixed everything that broke, and considered himself lucky. Jasmine worked at the salon, saved up for her dream of owning her own business, and told Dwayne in the evenings how one day they would have a house with a big yard. The first year and a half went smoothly. Dwayne worked on construction sites all over Dallas, sometimes traveling to Fort Worth and Arlington. He earned a steady income, gave some to her mother, and saved some. Meanwhile, Jasmine was making new friends. The Glow Beauty Salon was located in a shopping center, and with her talent for winning people over, Jasmine quickly became the center of a small universe. On Fridays, she went with her friends to clubs on Deep Ellum, and on Saturdays, she went to brunch at restaurants in Bishop Arts. She had money for entertainment, although with her salary and their shared expenses, she had only about $200 a month left for that. By the spring of 2023, the cracks were becoming more noticeable. Jasmine complained more and more about boredom, the cramped apartment, South Dallas, the monotony of their lives. She wanted to travel, go to expensive restaurants, buy clothes in normal stores, not at outlet malls on the highway. She wanted to live like the girls on Instagram, bright, beautiful, in the spotlight. "We work all the time and can't afford anything," she said over dinner. "I'm 28, Dwayne. I've never been outside Texas. I've never lived in a normal house." "We're saving up for your salon," Dwayne reminded her. "What salon?" "I need $30,000 to get started. We've saved up $6,000 in 2 years. At this rate, I'll be opening it when I'm 40. So, at 40, are you even listening to me? I want to live now, while I'm young and beautiful, not slave away for a later that may never come." Dwayne fell silent. He didn't know how to argue, didn't know how to promise what he couldn't deliver, and didn't understand what exactly they wanted from him. He already worked 10 to 12 hours a day, giving her almost everything. In June 2023, Trevon Barnes appeared in Jasmine's life. The 31-year-old truck driver worked for a transport company that hauled cargo between Dallas and Houston and earned $5,000 a month, almost twice as much as Dwayne. Travon was a handsome guy, tall, fit, with a neat beard and a broad smile. He drove a black Dodge Ram with chrome rims, wore $300 sneakers, and a gold chain as thick as his pinky finger. They met at the salon. Travon came in for a haircut with Jasmine's colleague, but left with Jasmine's phone number. Dwayne was the last to find out about the affair. For 2 months, Jasmine would leave in the evenings to see her friends, staying out late, returning with new earrings, new lipstick, in a new mood, elated and slightly guilty. In August, Malik called Dwayne at the construction site and said he had seen Jasmine at a restaurant on Uptown Avenue with a man who definitely did not look like her boyfriend. Maybe a relative, Dwayne said. Relatives don't kiss at the table, bro. Sorry. That evening, Dwayne came home and found a note on the kitchen table. Jasmine didn't wait for a conversation, explanations, or tears. She just wrote on a piece of paper from a notebook. Dwayne, I'm sorry, I'm leaving. Don't look for me, I deserve better. Jasmine. The apartment key was lying next to it. Dwayne sat down on a chair and stayed there until morning. He didn't cry. He hadn't cried since he was 12, at his father's funeral. He just sat there and stared at the note. In the morning, he went to work, worked a 10-hour shift, came back, put Jasmine's remaining belongings in a garbage bag, and left it by the door. A week later, Jasmine sent her friend Renee to pick up the bag. She didn't come herself. Malik tried several times to get Dwayne to go out for a beer, to the movies or fishing, but he refused. Sharon came over on weekends, cooked dinner, washed the dishes, and left without asking any questions. She could see that her son was suffering, but she knew his character. Dwayne was grieving silently, inside, like an underground fire that burns without smoke or flames, but burns everything to the ground. 6 months after the breakup, in February 2024, Dwayne underwent a routine medical examination at work. Lone Star Electric required its employees to undergo an annual examination, blood tests, blood pressure, vision, general health. The results came back a week later. Dr. Raymond Ellis, a thin man with thick-rimmed glasses who had been working at the clinic on Lancaster Road for 18 years, called Dwayne in for a private consultation. Mr. Cross, we need to talk about your blood test results. You have tested positive for HIV. We have conducted a confirmatory test. There is no mistake. Dwayne sat in a plastic chair across from the doctor's desk and listened to words that didn't make sense. HIV. Him. A 32-year-old electrician who didn't use drugs, didn't sleep with prostitutes, didn't get tattoos in basement parlors. The only woman he had been intimate with in the last 3 years was Jasmine. I need to ask you a standard question. With whom have you had unprotected sex in the last year? One woman, my ex-girlfriend. She needs to be informed of your diagnosis, and she should get tested. Dwayne left the clinic and got into his pickup truck. His hands rested on the steering wheel. The engine was off, the windows were closed. He sat there for 40 minutes, staring at the grey wall of the building. Then he took out his phone and dialed Jasmine's number. The subscriber is unavailable. He wrote a message. Jasmine, this is urgent. I've been diagnosed. You need to get tested. Call me. 1 check mark. Not delivered. She had blocked his number. Dwayne wrote to her on social media. Jasmine, I have HIV. You need to get tested. This is serious. Please respond. Read. No reply. A week later, Dwayne arrived at Trayvon's house on Cedar Cross Boulevard. He found out the address from Malik, who asked some friends. He knocked on the door. Trayvon opened it, wearing a t-shirt and holding a bottle of beer. What do you want? I need to talk to Jasmine. It's important. She doesn't want to talk to you, and I don't want to see you at my house. Go away. Trayvon, listen. It's about her health. She needs to know. I said go away. Trayvon took a step forward, his voice threatening. Or I'll help you go away. Jasmine's voice came from inside the house. Who's there? Your ex is here. Pause. Tell him to leave. We're strangers. The door slammed shut. Dwayne stood on the porch for a few more seconds, then turned around, got into his pickup truck, and drove away. For the next 3 months, he tried to find other ways to contact Jasmine, through mutual acquaintances, through the salon where she worked. Glow Beauty had closed by then, and Jasmine had moved to another salon. Dwayne didn't know which one. His friends passed on his requests, but Jasmine's response was always the same. He's crazy. I don't want anything to do with him. None of them knew about the diagnosis. Dwayne couldn't bring himself to say those words out loud in front of strangers. The truth came out in May 2024, accidentally and cruelly. Malik invited Dwayne to his wife Chantel's birthday party, the same Chantel who had brought Jasmine to the barbecue 3 years earlier. Dwayne didn't want to go, but Malik insisted, saying that he needed to get out of the house and that he couldn't just sit around inside. Around 10 p.m., Renee Powell, Jasmine's best friend since school, joined the group. Renee, 29, worked as an administrator at a dental clinic, was married, had a 2-year-old daughter, and was known for her bluntness, which bordered on tactlessness. That evening, she had a few glasses of wine and was talking louder than usual. When the conversation at the next table turned to Jasmine, someone asked Renee how her friend was doing. Dwayne listened. "Jasmine's fine," Renee said, swirling her glass. "She's living with a truck driver and planning to get married. Only he doesn't know what he's gotten himself into, poor guy." "What do you mean?" Chantel asked. Renee stopped, realizing she had said too much, but Dwayne had already come over and sat down across from her. "What did you mean?" "Dwayne, don't. Drunken ramblings." "Renee, I'm going to tell you one thing, and then you answer me. I have HIV. The only woman I've been with is Jasmine. She refuses to talk." "Did she know?" Renee put her glass down on the table. Everything went quiet. Those who had heard the question stopped chewing. "Yes," Renee said after a long pause. "She knew. She was diagnosed in 2019, 2 years before you met. She was registered and taking medication. But she didn't tell anyone. I found out by accident. I saw the pills in her bag when we went to the beach. I begged her to tell you, then Trevor. She refused. She said that if she told anyone, they would turn their backs on her." Dwayne listened, nodded, got up, and left. He didn't say goodbye, didn't thank her, didn't ask any more questions. He got into his pickup truck and drove away. Malik later said he ran after his car to the end of the street, but Dwayne didn't stop. For a year after that, Dwayne lived in a state that the prison psychiatrist would later call frozen anger. Outwardly, nothing had changed. He went to work, paid his rent, visited his mother on weekends, and took his antiretroviral drugs according to the schedule that Dr. Ellis had written on a piece of paper attached to the refrigerator with a magnet. The test showed that the therapy was working. The viral load was decreasing and his immunity was holding steady. But every evening, returning to his empty apartment, Dwayne sat in the same chair he had sat in all night after Jasmine left and thought. He thought about what she knew. From the very beginning, from the first kiss, from the first night, from the first morning when she made him coffee and smiled across the kitchen table, that every time he touched her, she knew how it could end. And she kept quiet. She kept quiet for 2.5 years. He told only 2 people about the diagnosis. Sharon was the first to find out. She came over on the weekend and found a package of antiretroviral pills on the kitchen table. Dwayne didn't lie. His mother listened, hugged him, sat with him on the sofa for an hour without saying a word, then got up and started making dinner. Malik found out a month later. Dwayne told him at the construction site during their lunch break, staring at the floor. Malik cursed, slammed his fist on the table, and asked if Dwayne needed help with anything. Dwayne said no. They didn't discuss it further. In April 2025, Malik called Dwayne after work. "Bro, I don't know if I should tell you this, but Jasmine is marrying Trevon. The wedding is on June 21st at Mount Zion Church. Chantel got an invitation." Dwayne was silent on the line. "Are you there?" Malik asked. "Yes." "Don't do anything stupid, Dwayne. She's not worth it. None of them are." "Thanks for telling me." He hung up and sat down in a chair. Jasmine was getting married. To a man she hadn't said a word to. A man who would sleep with her without knowing what she carries in her blood. Who will receive the same sentence he did, only to find out a year, 2, 5 years later when it's too late. In May, Dwayne went to an industrial chemical store on Irving Boulevard. As a licensed electrician, he had access to chemicals used in working with batteries and emergency power systems. He bought a liter bottle of concentrated sulfuric acid, signed a logbook, and presented his work, ID. The salesperson didn't ask a single question. Electricians bought acid regularly. At home, Dwayne poured the liquid into a steel thermos and placed it on a shelf in the closet. On the morning of June 21st, Dwayne got up at 6 a.m. as usual. He took his pills, drank his coffee, and shaved. He put on dark jeans, a black hoodie, and sneakers. He put a medical mask in his pocket. He took the thermos from the shelf. Mount Zion Church was a 20-minute drive from his apartment. Dwayne arrived an hour before the ceremony began, parked his pickup truck on a side street a block away from the church, and walked the rest of the way. The entrance was open. Guests were gathering, sitting down in the pews, greeting each other, hugging, laughing. Women in bright dresses and hats were fixing each other's hair. Men in suits were patting each other on the back, and children in fancy clothes were running between the pews while their mothers caught them by the hand. Someone brought balloons. Someone else placed baskets of rose petals along the aisle. The church smelled of flowers, perfume, and fresh pastries. Loretta Reed had brought 3 boxes of homemade cookies and was handing them out to guests at the entrance. Dwayne pulled on his hood and mask, entered through a side door, and stood against the wall in the back rows. After the pandemic, a man wearing a mask did not arouse suspicion. The ceremony began at noon. Pastor Gerald Hammond stood at the altar. Trevon stood next to him in a white suit with a boutonniere of white roses. He was smiling so broadly that the best man, Derek, Jasmine's older brother, leaned over and said, "Breathe, little brother, or you'll fall over." The guests laughed. When the march began, the hall rose. Jasmine walked out the doors arm in arm with her father, Wade. A white dress, a veil, a bouquet of lilies. Loretta in the front row pressed a handkerchief to her eyes and cried with happiness. Carla, standing at the altar in her lilac bridesmaid's dress, gave her sister a thumbs up and whispered, "Gorgeous." Jasmine walked down the aisle between the pews, smiling at the guests, and one of the older relatives said aloud what everyone was thinking, "My goodness, what a beautiful bride." When the pastor spoke the words about the reasons why 2 people cannot be united, Dwayne moved down the aisle. The guests did not immediately understand what was happening. A tall man in a hoodie was walking quickly toward the altar, and someone even thought he was a friend of the groom who had arrived late. Jasmine turned at the sound of footsteps. Their eyes met. She recognized him. Even with the mask, even after 2 years, she recognized those eyes, that height, that heavy gait. "Dwayne," she said, and the smile slipped from her face. He splashed the contents of the thermos in her face. A scream pierced the church. The acid burned her skin instantly. Her face, neck, upper chest. Her white dress smoked and darkened before their eyes. Trevon rushed to the bride, grabbed her by the shoulders with his bare hands, and burned both his palms and forearms. The guests jumped up from their pews, the women screamed, and the men rushed to the altar. Pastor Hammond jumped back, knocking over the Bible stand. Carla's sister, standing 3 meters away from the bride, screamed so loudly that it made the ears of the people in the back rows ring. In the chaos, as everyone rushed to Jasmine, who was writhing on the floor, Dwayne turned, walked to the side exit, and went outside. He threw the thermos on the floor near the altar. In the parking lot, he started running, got into his pickup truck, and drove away. The ambulance arrived 8 minutes later. Paramedics found the bride on the floor in front of the altar. Her veil and the top of her dress had melted and stuck to her skin. Her face was unrecognizable. The acid had eaten away at the tissue down to the muscle. Jasmine was conscious and screaming. She was taken to the burn center at Parkland Hospital at 12:34 p.m. 3rd and 4th degree burns covered more than 40% of her face and upper body. Doctors began emergency treatment, washing, pain relief, anti-shock drugs. At 6:47 p.m., Jasmine Reed died of toxic shock and multiple organ failure. She was 30 years old. Trayvon Barnes was hospitalized with 2nd-degree chemical burns to both hands and forearms. His condition was considered serious but not life-threatening. Jasmine's sister, Carla, who was standing next to the altar and saw everything, told the arriving patrol officers that she recognized the attacker, her sister's ex-boyfriend, Dwayne Cross. Detective Warren Tate of the Dallas Police Homicide Division received a call at 12:41 p.m. A 46-year-old man with a closely cropped gray head and stiff folds around his mouth. He had worked for the Dallas Police Department for 22 years, the last 9 of which were in the Homicide Division. This was the first time he had encountered an acid attack at a wedding. The drive to Mount Zion Church took 14 minutes. At the entrance were 3 patrol cars, an ambulance, yellow tape, and a crowd of people in formal attire on the sidewalk. Sergeant Lyle Drake, a red-haired man with 13 years of patrol experience, met Tate at the fence. Acid attack at a wedding ceremony, Warren. The bride is at Parkland Hospital in critical condition. The groom has burns on his hands and is also hospitalized. The attacker fled through a side exit, wearing a hood and mask, but the bride recognized him and called out his name. The bride's sister confirms, Dwayne Cross, the victim's ex-boyfriend. Cameras. There's a camera in the parking lot. It records to a disc in the church office. Haven't checked it yet. Witnesses? 80 people in the hall. Everyone saw it. The pastor, the bride's sister, friends, parents. Everyone is here. No one has left. The bride's mother is hysterical. The paramedics gave her a sedative. Tate put on latex gloves and entered the church. At the altar, on the marble steps, there was a dark, wet spot with a sharp chemical smell. Next to it lay a steel thermos without a lid. On the floor were fragments of a veil, melted and stuck to the stone. Senior Detective Darren Hayes, a thin African-American with a neat mustache and 16 years of experience, was already photographing the scene of the attack. Sulfuric acid, high concentration, Hayes said. Standard steel thermos, 1 liter. I'll take fingerprints from the body in an hour. The lid was found 4 meters from the altar, near the third pew on the left. He unscrewed it on the run. Route. He entered through the side door on the right, walked down the center aisle to the altar, and after the attack, he returned the same way and exited through the same door. Tate began questioning witnesses. The first was Carla Reed, Jasmine's 27-year-old younger sister, who stood next to the bride as her maid of honor. The young woman in a lilac dress, splattered with brown stains, sat on a bench in the church lobby. Her hands were shaking. "Miss Reed, tell us what you saw," Tate said, sitting down next to her. Jasmine was standing at the altar, and the pastor was reading the vows. "I heard footsteps, fast, heavy footsteps. I turned around and saw a man in a black hoodie and mask. He was walking straight toward us." Jasmine turned around too and said, "Dwayne." And then he threw something from a thermos in her face. She screamed. There was a chemical smell. Trevon rushed to her, grabbed her with his hands, and he was burned too. "Are you sure it was Dwayne Cross?" "Absolutely. I knew him for 2 years while he was dating my sister. Even with the mask, it was him. The height, the shoulders, the gait. And Jasmine recognized him. She said his name herself." "Did he say anything?" "Not a word. He came up, splashed it, and left. It took about 5 seconds. Tate questioned Pastor Gerald Hammond, a 62-year-old man who was sitting in his office behind the church hall. "I was facing the hall, reading the standard text," Hammond said. "I saw a man in the aisle. I thought he was a latecomer. Then I saw the thermos in his hand, but I didn't realize what it was. And then she screamed. Did you see his face? No. Hood and mask. Tall, large, black. Nothing else." Jasmine Wade, Reed's father, a 59-year-old man with grey temples who had been walking his daughter down the aisle a minute before the attack, sat next to his wife Loretta in the lobby. Loretta had been given a sedative and was lying on a bench with her eyes closed. "I was standing with my back to the aisle, handing my daughter over to the groom," Wade said. "I heard footsteps, then a scream. I turned around and saw Jasmine on the floor. I didn't see who did it. Carla said it was Dwayne, her ex-boyfriend. Did you know Dwayne Cross?" "I saw him a couple of times. Jasmine brought him over for Christmas. Quiet guy, an electrician, polite, quiet. I thought he was a normal person." "Do you know why they broke up?" Jasmine said they weren't compatible. She didn't explain anything else. Tate sent Drake to check the parking lot security camera. The recording from the hard drive in the church office showed that at 11:03, a grey Ford F-150 pickup truck parked on a side street. A large man in a dark sweatshirt got out of the car, pulled on a hood and mask, and walked to the side entrance. At 12:09, the same man came out, walked to the pickup truck, and drove away. The license plate was partially legible. Texas registration, the first 3 characters were visible. Tate relayed the information to dispatch. 40 minutes later, the response came. A grey 2017 Ford F-150, registered to Dwayne Cross, 35 years old, Cornet Street, South Dallas. A match for the name given by Carla Reed. Tate issued a search warrant. Alerts were sent to all Dallas patrol stations, checkpoints, Dallas and Fort Worth, and the Greyhound bus station. A photo was obtained from the Texas driver's license database. Tate arrived at Cross's apartment on Cornet Street at 3:20 p.m. with 2 patrol officers. The door was locked and no one answered when they knocked. Building manager Javier Santos opened the apartment with a spare key. Inside, it was empty and clean. The bed was made, the dishes were washed, and the trash can was empty. There were 3 items on the kitchen table: a set of keys, an envelope with money, and a note. Tate leaned over and read it without touching it. "Mom, here's $4,200. The apartment is paid for until the end of the month. I'm sorry. Dwayne." In the bathroom, Tate found a package of antiretroviral drugs prescribed to Dwayne Cross on a shelf. Next to it was an empty 1-liter dark plastic bottle with a label from the Chemtech supply store on Irving Boulevard. The label read, "Sulfuric acid, 98% concentration, technical grade." Tate called in the crime scene investigation team to examine the apartment and drove to the suspect's mother's house. Sharon Cross lived in a small house on Pinehurst Drive, 15 minutes away. The 60-year-old woman opened the door and looked at his badge without surprise, as if she had been expecting this visit. "Mrs. Cross, your son is suspected of assaulting Jasmine Reed. Do you know where he might be?" "No." "When was the last time you spoke to him?" "Last night. He came over, brought groceries, fixed the faucet in the bathroom. He stayed for an hour, drank coffee. Then he hugged me and left." "Did he say anything unusual?" Sharon paused. "He said, 'Thank you for everything, Mom.' I asked him, 'For what?' He replied, 'Just because.'" "Mrs. Cross, did you know about his diagnosis?" "Yes, HIV. He got it from that girl. She knew she was sick and didn't tell him. My son tried to contact her, but she blocked his number and set her new boyfriend on him." Sharon's voice remained steady, but her hands, clutching the edge of the door, were white at the knuckles. "That doesn't excuse what he did," she added quietly. "I know, but you asked." From Sharon Tate's house, he drove to the Chemtech supply store on Irving Boulevard. Salesman Randy Hope checked the sales log. May 14th, 1 liter of sulfuric acid, purchased by Dwayne Cross, employee ID Lone Star Electric. "Do you remember this man?" Tate showed him a photo. "Vaguely. A big black guy. He showed his ID and signed for it. Electricians often buy acid for batteries, nothing unusual." At 5:50 p.m., Tate was notified of Jasmine Reed's death. The detective drove to Parkland Hospital. The attending physician in the burn unit, Dr. Henry Watson, gave his conclusion. 3rd and 4th degree burns covering more than 40% of the face, neck, and upper chest. High concentration sulfuric acid destroys tissue instantly. Death occurred from toxic shock and multiple organ failure at 6:47 p.m. Tate went up 1 floor to Trayvon Barnes' room. The 33-year-old man was lying on the bed, both arms bandaged up to the elbows. "Mr. Barnes, I need to ask you a few questions." "Is she dead?" "Yes. I'm very sorry." Trevon closed his eyes. Then he said, "Ask your questions. Did you know Dwayne Cross?" "Jasmine's ex-boyfriend. He came to our house, tried to talk to her. I kicked him out. Jasmine said he was crazy." "Did he say why he came?" "Something about health. I didn't listen." "Mr. Barnes, Dwayne Cross is HIV positive. He was trying to tell Jasmine. Are you aware of Jasmine's HIV status?" Trayvon opened his eyes. "What status?" "Jasmine Reed has been HIV positive since 2019. She was registered and receiving treatment. Did you know?" "No. We've been together for 2 years. She never said anything." "You need to have a blood test. I'll ask the doctor to schedule an appointment." Trevon stared at the ceiling and said nothing more. The next morning, Tate received Jasmine Reed's medical records. Judge Payne had signed the order the night before. Her attending physician, Dr. Patricia Morgan, from the City Clinic on South Lancaster Road, confirmed that the HIV diagnosis was made in August 2019. The patient had been registered since October of that year and was receiving regular treatment. "Did you discuss informing her sexual partners with her?" Tate asked. "At every visit. It's standard procedure and a requirement of Texas law." Jasmine always replied that she didn't have a steady partner, even when she was living with Dwayne Cross and then with Trevor Barnes. She never mentioned either of them. Tate checked Cross in the police database, clean. No arrests, no citations, no fines. Driver's license in order, electrician's license valid. Tate went to Lone Star Electric that same day. The company's office was located on Inwood Road. Foreman Ray Campbell, a 52-year-old white man with a weathered face, had worked with Dwayne for 8 years. "The best electrician in 20 years in this business," Campbell said. "Not a single violation, not a single conflict, not a single complaint. Have you noticed any changes in the last year? He became even quieter. He used to at least have lunch with the guys. Then he shut himself off, ate alone, left right after his shift. Malik said he had health problems. Malik Sutton Tate was questioned in the evening at his home on Lancaster Avenue. The 34-year-old electrician sat on the porch smoking. I knew it would end badly, Malik said. Not like this. I didn't think he was capable of it, but he'd been carrying it inside for a year. HIV, betrayal, and she refused to even talk to him. Did he talk about revenge? Never. Not a word. Dwayne never talked about his feelings. I told him about the wedding in April and said, "Don't do anything stupid." He replied, "Thanks for telling me." That was it. Do you know where he might be? No, but he knows every abandoned warehouse in South Dallas. He spent 8 years installing wiring all over the city. Renee Powell Tate questioned her the next day at her home on Bonafield Street. The 29-year-old woman looked devastated. "I need to know everything about Jasmine Reed's HIV status," Tate said. "I found out by accident in 2020. We were going to the lake, and Jasmine asked me to get some cream from her bag. I saw a package of pills and Googled the names, antiretroviral drugs. I asked her directly. She denied it at first, then burst into tears and confessed. She got it from some guy in 2019, before Dwayne. Did you keep quiet? I kept quiet. She's been my best friend since 6th grade. I thought she would tell me herself. Every time I asked, did you tell him? She would reply, I will, but not now. Month after month. Then she left for Trevor, and I realized she would never tell him. In May 2024, you told Dwayne the truth. I had too much to drink at a party and blurted it out. Dwayne came up and asked me directly. He said he had HIV. I couldn't lie. Did you warn Jasmine? The next day, I called her. She flew into a rage, screaming that I was a traitor. She stopped talking to me. We only made up 6 months later, before the engagement. Did you know that Travon wasn't informed? I knew. I asked her to tell him. She replied, it's my business, don't get involved. Dwayne's pickup truck was found on the 3rd day. Patrolman Kevin Price spotted a grey Ford F-150 in a vacant lot behind an abandoned warehouse complex on Linfield Road in the industrial area of South Dallas. The truck was parked behind a concrete fence, hidden from view from the road. Tate arrived with a 6-officer apprehension team. The warehouse complex, 3 concrete block buildings with broken windows, had been vacant for several years. Lone Star Electric had installed wiring there in 2019. Dwayne knew the building from the inside. They found him in the 2nd building, on the 2nd floor, in the former control room. Dwayne was sitting on the floor against the wall. Next to him was an empty water bottle, a package of antiretroviral pills, and a rolled-up blanket. When Tate entered with a flashlight, Dwayne looked up. Dwayne Cross, you are under arrest on suspicion of murdering Jasmine Reed. Is she dead? Yes. That same day. Dwayne nodded, stood up, and put his hands behind his head without being told. On the floor next to the blanket lay a crumpled photograph of Dwayne and Jasmine at someone's barbecue. The interrogation took place at the Central Police Station the next morning. The appointed lawyer, Clarence Mosley, a heavy-set black man of 55 with 25 years of experience in criminal defense, recommended that he not testify. Dwayne refused. Tell me what happened, Tate said. I bought the acid in May. I poured it into a thermos. On June 21st, I went to church. I entered through the side entrance, waited for the right moment, and splashed it in Jasmine's face. Then I left. Why? She infected me with HIV. She knew about the diagnosis since 2019 and didn't say a word. We were together for 2.5 years. I tried to contact her. She blocked my phone, closed the door, and now she was going to do the same thing to someone else. Did you want to kill her? Dwayne paused. I wanted her to be unable to deceive anyone else. I didn't think she would die. But I'm an electrician. I work with acid. I know what it does. I guess I didn't care. Why did you run away? When she screamed, I realized what I had done. I got out and drove away. Then I sat in the warehouse and waited. What were you waiting for? I don't know. Tate presented the results of Trevon Barnes's blood test, which had been obtained from the hospital the day before. HIV positive. Jasmine had infected him too. Did you want to warn Trevon when you came to their house? Yes. I wanted to tell him in front of her so she could confirm it. She wouldn't let me in. Do you regret what you did? Dwayne stared at his hands for a long time. broad, calloused, and covered with small burn scars. I regret that Trayvon got hurt. He didn't do anything wrong. As for Jasmine, I don't know. She killed me first, slowly, silently, with a smile. I killed her quickly. I don't know which is worse. The trial of Dwayne Cross began on October 15th, 2025, presided over by Judge Douglas Payne. The prosecution was represented by Assistant District Attorney Andrea Fisher and the defense by attorney Clarence Mosley. The defendant was charged with first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances. The courtroom was packed with journalists, relatives, and members of the Mount Zion Church. On the first day, Fisher presented the jury with a chronology of events: the purchase of acid 5 weeks before the attack, the disguise, a hood and mask, a car parked in advance, and the escape through a side exit. This was not a crime of passion or a moment of insanity, Fisher said. This was a planned, cold-blooded act of revenge. The defendant spent 5 weeks preparing for the murder, chose the moment when the victim was most vulnerable, a wedding ceremony, and carried out the attack using one of the most cruel methods known to criminology. Sulfuric acid in the face is not murder. It is torture with lethal consequences. In his response, Mosley emphasized the circumstances. My client was deliberately infected with a deadly disease by a woman who had hidden her diagnosis from every man in her life for 6 years. When he tried to warn her and her new partner, he was pushed away, blocked, and called crazy. He watched as the victim prepared to destroy the life of another innocent person, and neither the law nor society offered him any tools to stop it. Detective Tate was the first witness for the prosecution. He methodically outlined the course of the investigation and presented material evidence: a thermos, a bottle of acid, surveillance camera footage, and the Chemtech supply store log. Medical examiner Naomi Sullivan, a 43-year-old black woman, presented her conclusion on the cause of death. Several jurors turned away when photos of the burns appeared on the screen. 98% sulfuric acid destroys tissue on contact, Sullivan said. The victim suffered 3rd and 4th degree burns over more than 40% of his face and upper body. The acid penetrated the muscle layers and, in several places, down to the bone. Death occurred from toxic shock 6 hours after the attack. Was the victim conscious the whole time? Fisher asked. Yes, Sullivan replied. 6 hours. Forensic scientist Hayes presented the thermos, exhibit number 1, and confirmed that the fingerprints on the body and lid belonged to the defendant. Pastor Hammond described the moment of the attack. I was standing 2 meters away from the bride. This man approached her and splashed liquid in her face. I will never forget the sound she made for the rest of my life. In my 30 years of ministry, nothing like this has ever happened in my church. This is a place where people come to God, not to kill each other. Carla Reed gave testimony that was interrupted several times. She couldn't speak through her tears. She described how she was standing next to her sister, how she saw the man in the aisle, how Jasmine said his name, and how she screamed after the attack. Her dress was on fire, Carla said. The white dress we picked out together was just melting and burning. I tried to help, but they yelled at me not to touch her or I'd get burned, and she was lying on the floor screaming. 6 seconds later, my sister was gone. The defense witnesses spoke about the defendant's character. Foreman Campbell repeated, 8 years of impeccable work, not a single conflict. In all that time, I never once heard Dwayne raise his voice, Campbell said. A guy who apologized if he accidentally hit someone with a tool on the construction site. I still can't believe he did it. Malik Sutton described what Dwayne was like before and after his diagnosis. He walked around like a living dead man for the last year, Malik said. He worked, ate, slept, took his pills, but he wasn't there anymore. It killed him long before he picked up that thermos, just in a different way. Dr. Ellis confirmed Dwayne's diagnosis and timeline. A positive result in February 2024, with the only possible source of infection being sexual contact with Jasmine Reed. Renee Powell gave testimony that silenced the courtroom. She recounted in detail how Jasmine learned of the diagnosis, how she hid it, how she refused to tell her partners. I asked her dozens of times, Renee said. First, tell Dwayne, then tell Trevor. She always gave the same answer. If I tell them, they'll leave me. No one will want to be with a sick woman. She was more afraid of being alone than she was of infecting the person who loved her. Do you think Jasmine was aware of the consequences of her silence? Mosley asked. She was a grown woman, Renee replied. She knew what she was doing. And she did it knowingly. Prosecutor Fisher asked in cross-examination. Miss Powell, if you knew your friend was infecting people with a deadly disease, why didn't you report it to the health authorities? Renee lowered her eyes. Because she was my best friend, and I was a coward. Trayvon Barnes testified via video link from the hospital. His hands were bandaged, his face gray. She told me she was healthy, Trayvon said. I asked her at the beginning of our relationship, and she said everything was fine. I believed her. I slept next to her for 2 years and didn't know what was in her blood. And when her ex-boyfriend came to warn me, I kicked him out, because she said he was crazy. What is your current HIV status? Mosley asked. Positive, Trayvon replied. I found out at the hospital after they bandaged my hands. In one day, I lost my fiancée and found out I was infected. Thanks to her for that. His voice broke, and he turned away from the camera. Loretta Reed, Jasmine's mother, was the last witness to testify. The 56-year-old woman, who had lost weight and aged in 4 months, spoke quietly. The courtroom was so quiet that you could hear Judge Payne's chair creaking. I didn't know my daughter was sick. She didn't tell me. I found out here, in this courtroom, at this trial. My girl lived with this for 6 years and didn't tell her own mother. I think about it every night. Why? What was she afraid of? That I would reject her? I would never have rejected her. Never. She fell silent. She wiped her eyes with a handkerchief. Then she looked at Dwayne behind the barrier. You threw acid on my daughter at her wedding, in front of the whole family, in front of God. We buried her in a closed casket because there was nothing left of her face. I had nothing to kiss goodbye to, nothing to remember except the scream I hear every night when I close my eyes. She put away her handkerchief and folded her hands in her lap. But my daughter knew she was sick, and she kept quiet. She infected you. She infected Trayvon, and she was going to keep quiet until the end. I gave birth to her, raised her, taught her everything I knew. But I didn't teach her this. I didn't teach her to tell the truth, even when it's scary. And that's my fault too. The courtroom was in tears. Prosecutor Fisher stared at the table. Mosley didn't ask a single question. Dwayne gave his final statement. He stood before the jury in prison uniform, thin, his hands clasped in front of him. I didn't ask her to infect me. I didn't ask her to keep quiet. I didn't ask her to close all the doors when I tried to warn her. I wanted one thing, for her to tell the truth. To me, to Trevor, to anyone. She refused. He paused. I bought the acid. I brought the thermos. I came to the church. No one forced me. I killed a man. I apologized to Trevor Barnes for his hands and for not finding a way to warn him sooner. I apologized to Mrs. Reed for having to bury her daughter in a closed casket. Fisher summed up in her closing statement, whatever the circumstances, the defendant took the life of a 30-year-old woman in one of the most cruel ways known to mankind. He planned it for 5 weeks. He chose her wedding day to cause maximum pain. Sulfuric acid in the face is not justice, it is sadism. Mosley asked for leniency. Dwayne Cross is not a maniac or a serial killer. He is a man who was pushed to the point of no return. The woman he loved deliberately infected him with a deadly disease, and when he tried to warn her new partner, she slammed the door on him. Society gave him no legal means to protect himself and others. This is not an excuse, but it is an explanation. The jury deliberated for 7 hours. The verdict, guilty of first-degree murder. Premeditation was acknowledged. The purchase of acid and the timing left no doubt. Judge Payne sentenced Dwayne Cross to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The court takes into account the circumstances that led the defendant to commit the crime, Payne said. However, premeditated murder using a chemical substance, committed in a public place and planned in advance, cannot be justified. Dwayne listened to the sentence without moving. As he was led from the courtroom, he turned his head toward Loretta Reed, but said nothing. Loretta sat with her eyes closed, clutching a handkerchief in her hand. 5 months after the trial, in March 2026, Trayvon Barnes arrived at Lincoln Memorial Cemetery on the south side of Dallas. It was early morning, and a cold wind blew dry leaves across the paths. His hands had healed, but the scars remained. Pink, tight skin from his wrists to his elbows, his right hand unable to fully extend. He found a grave in the far row by the fence. Gray granite, a name, dates. Withered flowers lay on the stone. Someone had brought them, perhaps Loretta, or maybe Carla. Trevin stood in front of the gravestone for a long time. In his jacket pocket were the results of his latest test. His viral load was decreasing. The therapy was working. He would live. With HIV, with scars on his hands, with a wedding ring he hadn't had time to put on. But he would live. He took the ring out of his pocket. Small, gold, with a tiny stone. On the inside was an engraving. Forever. Trayvon placed the ring on the granite slab next to the dried flowers. He stood there for another minute. He turned and walked toward the cemetery exit without looking back.